Okay, so if it's okay, I'm just going to start over. I'll go a little bit faster. So my name is Kimball Gallagher. I'm a classical pianist. I'm from New York, and I'm going to be sharing today about Myanmar Music Festival, which is a music festival in Myanmar. It works with Western music, traditional Myanmar music, and many other musics as we see fit. And it's existed for the past 2 years, 2015 and 2014. And before I get into this, though, I just wanted to share some of the frameworks, conceptual frameworks about being an artist that have informed my own personal journey, and also many of the aspects of the Myanmar Music Festival. And the first idea is the idea of artist as citizen. And I went to the Juilliard School in New York. The president of Juilliard wrote this book called The Artist as Citizen. And it's basically the idea that in the 20th century, artists could just be artists. They could just work on developing their craft only and practice, develop their craft, and there were other people to take care of the rest, whether it's managers or agents or record companies or other businesses or institutions that would create opportunities for the artist to perform, develop the audience, etc. But in the 20th century, it's a different situation, and artists are called upon in the 21st century, it's a very different situation, and artists are called upon to not only master their craft, as they did in the 20th century, but also to be educators, entrepreneurs, and advocates. All of these roles. So the artists have to take on so many new roles because of all the various changes that are going on, the internet, and the evolution of institutions and things like this. So for myself, I found this to be a very powerful idea because it enables the artist to really take control of their own destiny and does not rely on all of these other entities I was talking about, like in the 20th century. So for myself, my journey started doing what I call salon concerts, or what have been called salon concerts. And a salon concert is just a intimate concert, maybe in a private home. Chopin was known for playing in small settings among friends. And in this kind of setting, you have much more intimate interaction between the artist and the audience, and between the audience and the music, and within the audience themselves. And it can be a social occasion. You can meet many, many new people. And I started playing this kind of concert in the US and found that it held many, many special possibilities for the music. I found that the audience was more receptive to me as a person. I found the audience to be much more receptive to the music. And I often would speak about the music. I mean, people do this all the time nowadays, but always speak about the music in a way that can guide the audience to listen in a certain manner. This is a whole topic unto itself, but I started to personalize concerts very much. So I'd find out what's the favorite music of the people in the audience, make sure that's in the program. Another thing I started doing was composing a piece for each concert. So taking the name of the host and spelling the name out in musical notes. I'll go into that a bit later too. But anything you can do to customize and personalize the concert experience that for particular people or particular spaces, and often very much times homes. And so this idea set me on this journey, and I created a project based on this kind of concert called the 88 Concert Tour. The 88 Concert Tour is just to play one concert for each key on the piano. And I had bought my first piano by dividing the cost of the piano by 88 and asking for donations on a key-by-key basis. This is part of being the entrepreneur of the 21st century. You need a piano, you don't have any money, you raise the money. You find a creative way to raise the money. So in order to extend this idea of the 88, started the 88 Concert Tour. And it started with homes in the US, but it gradually led me to many parts of the world. This is a picture from Afghanistan. Here's a picture from Mysore, India. Here's Shanghai, China. This is a spectacular chateau in France. This is the inside. This is a home in Ankara, Turkey. This is a castle near Germany. I even started going so far around the world, much farther than I expected. I ended up doing a salon concert in Antarctica, the bottom of the globe. This is a cluster of scientific research stations in Antarctica at the King George Islands, which is the tip of the Antarctic Peninsula. and gave a salon concert inside, I don't know if I have a picture of it, in this room, inside one of the research stations, the Chilean Antarctic Institute. There I am with some penguins. That happens to be a Russian Orthodox church. Some other pictures of Antarctica. It's just a sign. Anyway, so from taking these journeys around the world in playing salon concerts, it wasn't just like the 20th century notion almost of showing up in a city, giving a concert, and then kind of leaving and going on to the next city. In a salon concert, you're most likely staying in somebody's home, you're getting to know people, you're actually making friends and acquaintances, and in this way, I found it to be a very much more natural and organic way to develop a career, and many other pianists and chamber music groups and other musicians have taken on this kind of approach, which is much closer to the audience. So you don't have a concert presenter, or the presenter and the audience is kind of the same entity. Any case, then I had another experience, which instead of just doing salon concerts, I made a trip to Afghanistan. This is Afghanistan, Kabul, Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, music had actually been illegal before 2001 under the Taliban. In 2001, the Taliban was removed, left a cultural void in the country, which started to be gradually filled again. And in 2008, a man named Ahmed Sarmast decided to found the Afghanistan National Institute of Music. And this is a music school. It's in Kabul. It's part of the Ministry of Education. They teach Western music, they teach Afghan music, they teach Indian music. And I was invited there for 3 years. And as a young pianist in my mid-20s, it was a very impactful experience to be in a war zone playing music. And I mean, you literally have experiences where there's helicopters overhead and you find out there's like an attack just down the street. And meanwhile, you're sitting in a room, oh, no, that's an F sharp, please. Oh, yeah, play it again. Okay, C major scale. So to have this juxtaposition where, you're playing music and there's just a war going on, kind of like, in a way, it feels like it's happening right outside the door, really brought to my attention the idea of context for music. And I realized I had already been exploring it so much with homes and how much different the meaning of a musical experience can be in a home with such a close contact with the audience, and then really how much different it can be in a place like Afghanistan where music had been illegal. And coming from a conservatory environment where, some of the beloved pieces of the Western classical music repertoire, like the Chopin's First Ballade or any of the Beethoven sonatas or something like this, in a music institution in New York, or really anywhere in the West, you walk down the hallway in a school that has many serious pianists, you're probably likely to hear possibly more than one person playing some of these pieces. And it's just done so much that it creates this sort of almost a jaded attitude towards the music. I'm going to play Chopin First Ballade. It's like, oh yeah, well, we've heard that, 5,000 times in the past 2 years, so we don't really care that much about the music, since we've just been almost spoiled with it. But in Afghanistan, it's like precisely the opposite, where these sounds are maybe being heard by the first time by some of these kids. And as an artist, you get that energy back from the audience. And for me personally, it was just absolutely refreshing to be playing these pieces and realize that, sort of I too, as an artist, can hear them for the first time at the same time while sharing them with people who are literally hearing them for the first time. So I had another experience with a kid named Elham. This is Elham. He's one of the pianists at the school. There I am with Elham. Elham asked me if he could have a composition lesson. So I gave him a composition lesson, and I spelled his name for him in musical notes, E-L-H-A-M. And just quickly, it's just, I'm sure some of you have run across it. Bach, of course, used to spell his name in musical notes, B-A-C-H, and use those notes as the basis for a composition. Many other composers have done this over the years. You can just use the music alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then just continue it H-I-J-K-L-M-N. So H would be A, I would be B, J would be C, etc. So using this system, you can spell out any word that uses the 26 letters of the alphabet on the piano. So Elham was, and I thought that he would take maybe a week to make this composition. He was 14 years old at the time, but actually I'll play it for you. It's pretty short. He came back the next day with a completed composition, so it sounds like this. Thank you. Thanks. So this is Elham's Prelude. That was his first composition, written at the age of 14 while growing up in a war zone. So I was kind of blown away that he could come up with this so quickly, and he's obviously very gifted at piano and generally and everything. But I was very inspired, so I told him, Elham, I'm going to take this piece, I'm going to play it in every concert, every salon concert. So I've been telling his story now, the story of him writing this piece for the past three or 4 years now. And in a salon concert, private concert environment, or really in any concert environment, it can be a very impactful story. And I found that it actually gets people to some degree to approach music in a slightly different way, because as I played this piece around the world, in Dubai, I played this at a concert, and a woman came up to me after the concert and said, I'd really like to help Elham, what can I do? And I said, well, he kind of needs a piano. So she bought him a piano and sent it to his house in Kabul, where it was and still is at his home there, so he could then just practice much, much more instead of being limited only to the school. Anyway, fast forward, he actually just got accepted to Hunter College in New York, and he's just moved from Kabul, Afghanistan to New York, amazingly, just a few weeks ago. And so I found this story very inspiring, and as I've shared it more and more, I found that people, audiences that I've come into contact with, can gain perhaps a renewed sense of inspiration, a renewed feeling about what music can actually do in totally transforming and one individual person's life. So through this experience in Afghanistan, I decided that I needed to always, whenever possible, include something that would be in a humanitarian area. No matter where I went in the world, no matter what kind of concerts I'm playing, always want to try to do something that's humanitarian in nature. And this could be anything from, you know, teaching at a school that's volunteering. It can be, sorry, this is going to keep going on and off. It can be volunteering at a school, it can be donating a concert, it can be doing a charity event, it can be trying to go to areas of the world that don't necessarily have a music school or don't really have music, trying to find new audiences, just taking a very adventurous attitude towards that. And it was really through this kind of attitude that I had adopted and also encouraged many other musicians to do. And of course, this is really nothing new. You know, like pianist composers like Franz Liszt, he was always trying to seek out new artists and new places, new sources of inspiration. So it really is in a Western musical tradition as well to explore these areas. But anyway, it was in this context that I came to Myanmar as part of the Myanmar Music Festival, and I came with my partner. Where is she right now? Kaiyin Huang. She's sitting back there. And we came together to Myanmar, and it was because actually every person who was involved in arranging my first trip to Myanmar had 3 letters in their name. It was kind of funny. I had met a woman here in Bangkok whose name was Kat. Kat introduced me to Kit, who's standing over there, And I learned about the Gitame school through, a little bit through Kat, and much more through Kit. And then a friend of mine's girlfriend started working for the US State Department in Yangon, and her name was Bic, B-I-C. So I had Kat, Kit, and Bic. And when Bic moved there, I thought, okay, I must, actually Kat had given me Kit's email like 1 year before I actually wrote to Kit, because I just didn't have the occasion to sort of be in Thailand and then make the trip from Bangkok to Myanmar. But anyway, all the elements kind of came together. We took the first trip to Myanmar and went to the Gitame Music School in Yangon, went to the Gitame Music School in Mandalay, also did some performances at the American Center, talked to different people, got to know some people, and we're just very inspired by the atmosphere in Myanmar, the dynamic we were able to have with the students. We met another student who's kind of like Elham. His name is Keyyin Huang. We met him up in Mandalay. And just to make a long story short, he was very gifted. We started working with him, and 2 years later, he's now also gone to the States, actually on full scholarship for piano. So that was also an inspiring story. Anyway, so on our first trip to Myanmar, we thought maybe it would be fun to start an international festival here sometime. And we thought maybe this could be fun. It was kind of a joke because we thought it would be a huge amount of work. But then, and I had been working with Kaiyin for a long time in Taiwan before this trip and in doing some of these trips together around the world. And Kaiyin is also a pianist, but she also, I was talking about the necessity to be a multifaceted human being in the 21st century as an artist. Kaiyin had also written a book on corporate social responsibility. And she had been getting an interview for this book, and she just mentioned to the host of the show that she had just been to Myanmar. And the host got very excited and said, well, you know, maybe you should really think about actually starting this festival. I know somebody who can fund the festival. And took her to meet some people at what's called the Taiwan Democracy Foundation, and they agreed almost immediately to sponsor this festival. And then Kaiyin herself went back to Myanmar. We took some other trips to Myanmar. We found some more funding, and we started gathering the elements of the festival together. There's many elements of the festival. I'd like to play this video for you first. If I could. video is supposed to be preloaded before this, and apparently it's not. Oh, so sorry about this. Okay, so that gives you some ideas of some of the elements of the festival. I'll just go into a few more details, and then I'm just going to play you some pieces just to round it off. So some of the different areas of the festival that we've had to work very hard at developing newly in a sort of entrepreneurial fashion. The multitude of partners that we've developed in Myanmar, the sponsorship, and then the different kinds of programming in terms of what the activities actually are that are part of the festival. Starting with programming, we found there was a huge need for private lessons because there are not, there's a lot of people visiting Myanmar right now. So many people seem interested in going there, but they'll go there for sort of a week and teach some people, and then the next week somebody else is visiting, and oftentimes what they're saying might even contradict what the previous week's person said. So it's like having a different private teacher on your instrument every week. You need to sort of, it's better development to stick with one approach for some time and really absorb it rather than having so many different kinds of input. So we wanted to have private lessons, but we've actually hired a teacher to be there year-round. It's just for violin and piano, but it's a start. And there are other teachers there, but private lessons are part of the festival as well. Chamber music especially had not really been so developed in Myanmar at all. Everyone that we met was very focused on just the private lessons. And of course, when you play chamber music, you're developing your listening, your collaborative skills. And in listening to another instrument, hopefully you learn to listen to yourself better when you play. So we incorporate chamber music, not just with Myanmar students playing amongst themselves, but having groups where it's kind of like the style of the festival in Marlborough or Yellow Barn in the United States, where the professional artists form groups with the students, and they stay together for the duration of the festival playing different repertoire. We also take Myanmar traditional music lessons. We also have collaborations between the Western artists and the Myanmar traditional artists, so that can be very interesting. So those are some of the aspects in the festival itself. We have an entrepreneurship program as well, where we teach entrepreneurial skills to the Myanmar artists. So this is everything from establishing a business plan, checking out what your market is, figuring out what your marketing needs to be, and then the students that we know well, we try to mentor them in these skills as they sort of navigate their own life and whatever their particular needs are. So a lot of the festival is actually oriented around mentorship. I mentioned earlier the student Keyyin Huang, who had been in Mandalay. He actually took a job working at one of our partners' school called the Khayay School in Myanmar, and he was mentored by one of the other directors of the festival. And through this, he gained a lot of teaching experience, working with young children, and also a lot of performance opportunities, and a lot of just real life skills in working in this type of environment, which I think had prepared him well to go to college in the US. So this idea of mentorship is something we take very seriously, and right now there's really only a small number of students in Myanmar that we're working with, so we're able to give a lot of students a lot of sort of personal attention. So that's an important aspect to the festival. As far as sponsorship goes, the executive director, Kaiyin Huang, who's sitting back there, she's based in Taiwan, and a lot of the initial funding for the festival and interest has come from Taiwan. It's exciting opportunity to have a cultural kind of ambassadorship happening from Taiwan. It's also very interesting to have Taiwan sort of, from a funding standpoint, lead a kind of like international group of people, which includes many people in Myanmar and some of these artists that we've brought in from Europe, from the US, like myself, and also from Taiwan. So I mentioned the Taiwan Democracy Foundation. They've been a sponsor. There's another sponsor in Europe called the Johnson Foundation. It's another arts foundation, particularly Swiss and UK oriented. We have the US Embassy themselves. They've also been a sponsor. And there's possibilities for other embassies to participate in these kinds of activities. There's also, we have some corporate sponsors as well. There's international ones and also local ones. And we've worked very hard to develop relationships with these sponsors so that we can understand. This is part of the ideas where we assimilate some of the ideas from Kayin's book about corporate social responsibility and some of the ideas of the artist as citizen about understanding entrepreneurship and advocacy and trying to speak the language of these businesses, understanding incentives for businesses to actually fund the arts. And in Myanmar, it's very interesting because so much of the importance of the arts, there is a Ministry of Culture, of course, in Myanmar, but there's very few musicians who would think that music could actually bring sustained livelihood in Myanmar. So there's certainly a need to develop more and more funding possibilities and funding sources in Myanmar. And that's one of the missions of the festival, actually, is to inspire businesses to become a part of the artistic life in Myanmar and to find creative ways to integrate the arts even into their businesses, and for the businesses to integrate themselves into some of the artistic activities. So that's a little bit about the funding. As far as our partners go, we've worked with different schools. Our strongest partner now is called the Khayay School. It's an international multilingual school. They actually did not have a music program so much before we met them, and they're gradually been developing their musical program. But they the school has been in Myanmar for some years now, 10 or 15 years, and because of the depth of their relationships they've developed in Myanmar, it's been a natural partner for us. They've been able to help us make links with other partners in Myanmar and other people, and the philosophy, the educational philosophy, is very much based on a customized notion of education, which has a nice analogy to these customized concerts and the mentorship that we're doing. So it's a natural fit in that sense. We've worked with other schools like Gitame, I mentioned earlier a bit, also MIT, Myanmar Institute of Theology. They have a strong music program. We formed a partnership with the United Nations that was celebrating its 70th anniversary. This has been a very strong partnership that's enabled us to open up many conversations with people because it sort of gives us like stamp of approval. It was good timing because we're doing a concert at the National Theater there, and the United Nations was looking for ways to just in general promote the fact that it's their 70th anniversary, and so they're eager to participate in things that can reach out to local audiences, and we've done so much to cultivate a local audience there, so that was sort of a natural fit as well. The National Theater is operated by the Ministry of Culture of Myanmar, and we were able to start a relationship with them, which hopefully will continue. That relationship involves not only using the National Theater for a concert, but also collaborating with students from the National University of Arts and Music, and that's been very, very interesting, some of the collaborations you saw on the video. Other partners have been other venues like the Yangon Gallery. The U.S. Embassy is not just a funder, but also a partner. We've been able to form relationships around outside of Myanmar and doing our outreach tour in PA, which is actually it's the first UNESCO heritage site in Myanmar. It's about 5 hours drive from Yangon. Some concerts in Mandalay, some educational work in Mandalay, also up in the north in Machina, and some other places closer around Yangon. So it's sort of a series of partners, and since we're just in our second year, we're still in the beginning of all of these relationships. So a lot of them, it's not 100% clear exactly what's going to happen. Also, because the country is changing so much, it's such a dynamic place, the choices that we make for the festival this year may be very different than the ones we make just 1 year afterwards, depending on the changing needs and the changing environment and just the sheer number of students. So that's an overview. One of the reasons I wanted to give this presentation is because we would like to open up the understanding and the knowledge about Myanmar Music Festival to other countries in Southeast Asia, and we'd like to encourage just any kind of exchange that we can have with the Myanmar Music Festival and between Myanmar Music Festival or Myanmar generally and other Southeast Asian countries. Certainly Thailand is such a natural choice. This is so close, it's not very expensive. There's flights for under 3,000 baht, actually. You can go to Myanmar one way, so that's pretty good. So if anyone's particularly interested in the festival, please talk to me afterwards. I'd like to share 4 special pieces 3 of them are compositions that I myself have written using names. And just some of my experiences from the '88 concert tour, I'd like to play a prelude that I wrote on the name Princess Galliani, which was dedicated to her for a concert played a few years ago here. Another one for King Bhumibol, spelling his name in musical notes. And I'll start with those 2. This just gives you some of the ideas of the personalization of concerts and how by creating a composition you can sort of create a special link. This first piece is written for Princess Galliani. This was a concert sponsored, I think, by the Fund for Classical Music, and I believe it was around the time this conservatory started several years ago. And the name Galliani in musical notes sounds like this. And so this piece is based on that melody. It's very short. Thank you. So this next one is for the Siam Society, and King Bhumibol Siam sounds spelled out in musical notes, and Bhumibol is Thank you. And the next, thank you, it's okay. And the last prelude is for Aung San Suu Kyi. You saw her in the presentation. In a strange connection, I found out that Aung San Suu Kyi's son, Kim, is named after a fictional character in a book by Rudyard Kipling called Kim. And in the book, the character's name is Kimball O'Hara. And this turns out to be the same fictional character that I'm also named after. So I found this out, and we approached Aung San Suu Kyi and asked her if she'd like to host a private salon concert as part of our festival, and she agreed. So we've done 2 concerts with her. I wrote a prelude for her as well. Her name, Suu Kyi, sounds, and Aung San is also the icon of her political party, NLD, National League of Democracy, is a peacock. So I've included a peacock section in this piece, and there's also a quote from Myanmar traditional music. And so this Aung San Suu Kyi prelude is something I've performed whenever I really talk about Myanmar or Myanmar Music Festival, and it's a nice personal connection to this whole world. And the 2 pieces, Princess Galyani and King Bhumibol Prelude, I try to perform those anytime give an appearance in Thailand. I'd like to close with a 4-hand arrangement of a Myanmar melody. This was transcribed by Keyyin Huang, the student I mentioned, and very successful arrangement, I think. So hope you enjoy this Myanmar melody. So finally, I think we have a few minutes if there's any questions at all. If anyone's interested in coming to the festival or participating in the festival, please exchange information with me or Kaiyin, and we can keep in touch with you for sure. Any questions? What do you guys think of this? It's all right if there's no questions. Sure. Yeah, so the question was, which is it from a folk music element, the pieces that have Myanmar elements? So the last piece we played does have a Myanmar melody. It's a Myanmar folk melody, as far as I understand, and it's been put into this, it was arranged for string quartet, it's arranged for piano, so a lot of the, there's a guy in Myanmar named Saw James, and he has an orchestra called the Attachment of Cloud Orchestra, and so he's arranged a lot of Myanmar melodies. I actually am not sure which instrument that melody would have been played on originally. The quote in my piece that had a Myanmar element was a quote from Myanmar traditional music, which is played on harp, it's played on piano. I learned it as a pianist, it's just a quotation. So that's like a Myanmar traditional music. So I guess you would call that like an art music tradition, really. But that also has folk elements in it. But the people who play it tend to be, you know, it's musicians. It's not just a casual kind of thing. So, yeah. We're trying to incorporate more and more. There's actually a composer from Myanmar at this conference, Diramore, and we were just talking to him early. We're trying to encourage Myanmar composers to write pieces that can be played, you know, if they're interested, that can be played on piano. Because, for example, then I can talk about Myanmar all over the world when I'm performing and play the piece on the piano so people can hear it all the time. And piano is part of Myanmar music tradition, so I think it's appropriate. It's not just taking a melody that's normally for another instrument and putting it on piano. It's incorporating. Yeah. Thanks. Yeah. Any questions? All right, well, thank you guys for coming. I appreciate it. And again, please talk to me. I'm very friendly. Thank you.